Zilara had worked on the ship called the Endless Sky for 2 years. She was a Volante, a species known for their silver skin and their ability to read minds. But Zilara never used this power. Her people had strict rules about it. Reading someone's mind without permission was the worst crime a Volante could commit. The punishment was exile. The shame would follow her family forever. The Endless Sky was a large vessel that belonged to the Galactic Council. It carried crew members from 12 different species. They traveled through space, visiting different planets and keeping peace in the outer regions. Zilara worked in the navigation room. She helped plot courses through the stars. It was quiet work, and she liked it that way. Among her co-workers was a human named Kyle Morgan. He was not special to look at. He had brown hair that was always a little messy. His eyes were a common shade of green. He was of average height, and he spoke quietly. Most of the alien species on the ship ignored him completely. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only joined the Galactic Council 50 years ago. Many species still thought of them as primitive and unimportant. But Zilara had noticed something strange about Kyle Morgan. It started small. One day, Kyle changed their flight path for no reason anyone could see. 3 hours later, they received a warning about a meteor storm in the exact area they would have traveled through. Another time, Kyle avoided a corridor on the ship. Minutes later, a pipe burst in that same corridor and flooded it with steam. He seemed to know things before they happened. Zilara also noticed that Kyle spoke languages he should not know. Once, she heard him say a phrase in Old Drexen, a language that had been dead for 1,000 years. When she asked him about it, he just smiled and said he must have read it somewhere. But his eyes told a different story. They held secrets, deep and old. She wanted to know more, but she never asked. She respected his privacy, just as she hoped others would respect hers. Then came the day that changed everything. The Endless Sky was traveling near a gas giant when the explosion happened. Something went wrong in the engine section. The blast tore through 3 decks. Fire spread fast. The crew worked hard to contain the damage. When the smoke cleared, 17 crew members were injured. 5 were dead. Kyle Morgan was among the injured. They found him near the engine room. He had been walking in that direction when the explosion occurred. No one knew why he was there. Navigation officers had no business near the engines. His body was badly burned. His bones were broken in many places. The ship's doctor, a 4-armed Drexen named Korvath, did everything he could. But the damage was too great. "He will not survive the night," Korvath told the captain. "I am sorry. There is nothing more I can do." Zilara heard the news and felt a strange sadness. She barely knew Kyle Morgan. They had worked together, but they were not friends. Still, something pulled at her. She felt like she was losing something important, something she did not fully understand. She went to the medical bay. The room was quiet and dark. Kyle lay on a bed, machines beeping softly around him. His face was pale. His breathing was shallow. He looked small and fragile, nothing like the man who had seemed to know the secrets of the universe. Zilara stood over him. She did not know why she had come. She did not know what she hoped to find. But as she looked at his dying face, she made a decision that would change her life forever. She would use her telepathy. She told herself it was an act of kindness. She would enter his mind gently, just to offer comfort in his final moments. She would be a peaceful presence, a warm light in the darkness of death. It was not truly a violation of the law, she reasoned. It was mercy. She reached out with her mind. The connection hit her like a wave crashing against rocks. Images flooded into her consciousness. They came fast, too fast to understand. She saw star maps with coordinates she did not recognize. She saw ancient symbols carved into stone walls. She saw weapons of terrible power, weapons that could destroy entire planets. She saw meetings in dark rooms, where humans spoke in whispers about things the galaxy did not know. And she saw the truth about the Galactic Council. The Council was not what it claimed to be. It was not a peaceful organization that brought species together. It was a tool of control. The founding races, the 5 ancient species that had created the Council long ago, used it to stay in power. They kept other species weak on purpose. They erased history. They started wars when it suited them. They lied about everything. Kyle Morgan knew all of this. He had spent his entire life gathering these secrets. He was part of a human network that operated in the shadows, collecting evidence, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth to the galaxy. Zilara tried to pull back. The information was too much. Her mind could not hold it all. But the connection would not break. She saw more and more. She saw her own people, the Volanthi, and what had been done to them. The founding races had feared the Volanthi long ago. They had feared their telepathic powers, so they had weakened them over many generations. They had created laws and traditions that limited what the Volanthi could do. The strict rules that Zilara had followed her whole life were not sacred traditions. They were chains designed by those who feared her kind. Finally, the connection broke. Zilara stumbled backward. She grabbed the edge of a table to keep from falling. Her heart was beating fast. Her silver skin had gone pale. She could not breathe properly. On the bed, Kyle Morgan's eyes opened. He looked directly at her. His gaze was clear and sharp, not the gaze of a dying man. In that moment, he was fully awake, fully aware. He knew what she had done. He knew what she had seen. "You saw," he whispered. His voice was weak, but his words were strong. "You were not supposed to see." Zilara opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. What could she say? She had invaded his mind. She had stolen his secrets. She had broken the most sacred law of her people. Kyle's eyes held no anger. They held something else, something that looked almost like relief. "It is done now," he said. "You cannot unsee what you have seen. The question is, what will you do with it?" Before Zilara could answer, his eyes closed. The machines around him began to scream. His heart had stopped. Korvath rushed into the room with his medical team. They pushed Zilara aside and began working on Kyle's body. Zilara stood in the corner of the room, watching. Her mind was spinning with everything she had learned. The Galactic Council was a lie. Her own people had been manipulated for thousands of years. And a quiet human named Kyle Morgan had been protecting secrets that could change the entire galaxy. The medical team worked for a long time. Against all odds, they brought Kyle back. His heart started beating again. His breathing returned. Korvath called it a miracle. He said he had never seen anything like it. But Zilara knew it was not a miracle. She had felt something in Kyle's mind during those brief moments of connection. She had felt a will to live that was stronger than anything she had ever encountered. Kyle Morgan was not ready to die. He had too much left to do. As she left the medical bay, Zilara knew that her life would never be the same. She had broken her people's law. She had learned terrible truths. And somehow, she was now connected to a human who carried the weight of galactic secrets on his shoulders. She did not know what would happen next. But she knew one thing for certain. There was no going back. Zilara avoided Kyle Morgan for 5 days. She went to work in the navigation room. She ate her meals alone. She slept badly, waking up in the middle of the night with images from Kyle's mind still burning in her head. Ancient weapons, secret meetings, the lies of the Galactic Council, the chains placed on her own people. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it all again. The other crew members noticed that something was wrong with her. They asked if she was feeling sick. They offered to cover her shifts. Zilara thanked them and said she was fine. She was not fine. She was falling apart inside, but she could not tell anyone why Kyle was recovering quickly. Too quickly, some said. He had been near death just days ago. Now he was walking around the medical bay, doing exercises to rebuild his strength. Korvath kept him for observation, but it was clear that the human would be back to work soon. On the 6th day, Kyle came to find her. Zilara was in the observation deck. This was a large room at the front of the ship with huge windows that looked out into space. The endless sky was traveling through normal space now, and the stars hung still and bright against the black void. It was a peaceful place. Zilara came here when she needed to think. She heard footsteps behind her. She knew it was Kyle without looking. His footsteps had a particular rhythm. Light and careful, like a hunter moving through tall grass. "We need to talk," he said. Zilara did not turn around. "I violated the sacred laws of my people. I entered your mind without your permission. You have every right to be angry with me. I am not angry. Now." She turned. Kyle stood a few meters away. He was thinner than before, and there were dark circles under his eyes. But he stood straight, and his gaze was steady. He looked like a man who had faced death many times and had stopped being afraid of it. "How can you not be angry?" Zilara asked. "I stole your most private thoughts. I saw things you wanted to keep hidden." Kyle walked closer. He stopped beside her and looked out at the stars. "When you entered my mind, the connection went both ways," he said. "I saw into your mind as well. Not as deeply as you saw into mine, but enough. I saw who you are, Zilara. I saw your doubts. I saw the questions you have carried since you were a child. I saw the times when you felt that something was wrong with the galaxy, but you did not know what it was." Zilara felt a cold feeling in her chest. He had seen inside her. He knew her secret thoughts, the ones she had never shared with anyone. "You have always known that something was not right," Kyle continued. "You felt it in your bones. The way the Council operates. The way certain species are always on top while others struggle. The rules your people follow so strictly, without ever asking why. You knew it was wrong. You just did not have proof. And now I do," Zilara said quietly. "Now you do." They stood in silence for a moment. Outside the window, a distant nebula glowed with soft colors. It was beautiful, but Zilara could not enjoy it. Her mind was too full of heavy thoughts. "Who are you really?" she asked. "What I saw in your mind, a network of humans gathering secrets. How long has this been happening?" Kyle took a deep breath. "It started 60 years ago, when humanity first made contact with alien life. The Galactic Council welcomed us. They said we were a young species with great potential. They offered us technology and trade and a place among the stars. It seemed like a dream come true. But some of us were suspicious," he continued. "Humans are a paranoid species in some ways. We have a long history of being deceived by those in power. Some of our leaders asked the obvious question. Why were they being so generous? What did they want from us?" Zilara had wondered the same thing when humans first arrived. Most species waited hundreds of years to join the council. Humans had been invited almost immediately. "We started investigating," Kyle said. Quietly, carefully. "We sent agents to different planets. We searched old archives. We talked to members of species that have been part of the council for a long time. And slowly, the truth became clear." He turned to face her directly. His green eyes were intense. "The Galactic Council is not a government of equals. It is a system of control. The 5 founding races, the Drexen, the Malari, the Vestians, the Kronith, and the Palax, they created the council to ensure their own power. They write the laws. They control the military. They decide which species can advance and which must stay behind." "That cannot be true," Zilara said, but her voice was weak. She had seen the proof in his mind. She was only arguing because she wanted to be wrong. It is true. The founding races manipulate everything. When a species becomes too powerful, they find ways to weaken it. When a species discovers the wrong information, they erase it from history. They have been doing this for thousands of years. Zilara thought about her own people. She thought about what she had seen in Kyle's mind about the Volanti. "My people," she said. "We were once powerful. I saw that. The founding races feared us." Kyle nodded. The Volanti were one of the greatest telepathic species in the galaxy. Your ancestors could do things that would seem like magic today. They could communicate across vast distances. They could sense danger before it arrived. They could even influence the thoughts of others, though they rarely did so. The founding races saw this as a threat. "So they weakened us," Zilara said. The words tasted bitter in her mouth. Over many generations, they created breeding programs that slowly reduced your abilities. They introduced cultural rules that made you afraid to use your powers. They told you that reading minds without permission was the greatest sin, so terrible that even thinking about it was shameful. And your people believed them. They passed these rules down from parent to child until no one remembered that things had ever been different. Zilara felt tears forming in her eyes. Her whole life, she had believed that the laws of her people were ancient and sacred. She had been proud to follow them. Now she learned that those laws were chains placed on her ancestors by enemies who wanted to keep them weak. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "Why trust me with such dangerous information?" Kyle smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, full of weight, because you already know. You saw it in my mind. There is no point in pretending otherwise. The question now is what we do about it. What can we do? The Council controls everything. They have fleets of ships and armies of soldiers. What chance do a few people with secrets have against all of that? More than you might think, Kyle said. The Council's power is built on lies. Lies are only strong as long as people believe them. Once the truth gets out, once species across the galaxy learn what has really been happening, the Council's foundation will crack. That is what my network has been working toward. We gather evidence. We find proof. And when we have enough, we will share it with everyone. Zilara thought about this. It seemed impossible. The Council had existed for thousands of years. How could a handful of humans and their allies bring it down? But then she thought about what she had seen in Kyle's mind. The determination, the courage, the willingness to sacrifice everything for a cause that might take generations to succeed. Humans were not as simple as she had thought. They were stubborn and brave, and they did not give up easily. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Kyle held out his hand. "I want you to join us. Your telepathic abilities could help us greatly. You could sense when people are lying. You could detect threats before they reach us. You could do things that no human can do." Zilara looked at his hand. Taking it would mean betraying everything she had been taught. It would mean becoming an enemy of the most powerful organization in the galaxy. It would mean risking her life and the lives of everyone she cared about. But not taking it would mean living a lie. It would mean accepting the chains that had been placed on her people. It would mean doing nothing while injustice continued. She took his hand. "What happens now?" she asked. Kyle squeezed her hand gently. "Now I introduce you to the others. You are not alone in this, Zilara. There are more of us than you know, scattered across the galaxy, waiting for the moment when we can finally act. And that moment is coming soon." He released her hand and walked toward the door. "Come with me," he said. "There are some people you need to meet." Zilara took one last look at the stars outside the window. They seemed different now. They were no longer just points of light in the void. They were battlefields, full of secrets and lies and hidden wars. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting to be found. She followed Kyle out of the observation deck, leaving her old life behind. Kyle led Zilara through the lower sections of the endless sky. These were parts of the ship that most crew members never visited. Storage rooms, maintenance tunnels, and forgotten compartments that had been sealed for years. Kyle knew them all. He moved through the darkness with confidence, like a man walking through his own home. They stopped at a door that looked like every other door. Kyle pressed his hand against a hidden panel. A soft light scanned his palm. The door slid open. Inside was a small room. It had been converted into a meeting space. There were chairs arranged in a circle. Maps of star systems covered the walls. In the center of the room was a table with a holographic projector. 3 people were already waiting. The first was Corvus, the ship's doctor. Zilara knew him well. He was a Drexen, with 4 arms and gray skin that looked like stone. He was one of the founding races, which made his presence here surprising. Why would a Drexen work against the Council? The second was a Shalan named Melara. The Shalan were an amphibious species with smooth blue skin and large dark eyes. They could breathe both air and water. Melara was small and quiet, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. The third was another human. He was older than Kyle, with gray hair and a face full of lines. His name was Connor Wells, and he had been part of the network for over 30 years. "This is Zilara," Kyle said. "She knows everything." Corvath stood up, his 4 hands clasped together in front of him. "We have been watching you for some time, Zilara. Kyle believed you could be trusted. I was not so sure. Telepaths make me nervous." "With good reason," Zilara said. "I read Kyle's mind without his permission. That is how I learned your secrets." "And yet Kyle still wanted to bring you in," Melara said. Her voice was soft, like water flowing over rocks. "He said the connection went both ways. He saw your heart. He says you are one of us, even if you did not know it until now." Zilara looked at Kyle. He nodded. "I trust you," he said simply. "That is enough for me." Connor stood up. He was tall for a human, and he moved slowly, as if his body was tired. But his voice was strong. "Trust is good, but information is better. Sit down, Zilara. We have much to discuss, and not much time to discuss it." They all sat. Connor activated the holographic projector. A map of the galaxy appeared above the table, glowing with soft blue light. Certain star systems were marked in red. "These are the locations of archives," Connor explained. "Ancient archives, created by civilizations that existed before the Galactic Council. They contain the true history of the galaxy. The founding races have spent thousands of years trying to destroy them. But some still remain hidden." He pointed to one red mark near the edge of the map. "This is the Sara Minor. It is an ice moon orbiting a gas giant in a system that the Council has declared uninhabited. In truth, it is home to the largest archive we have ever discovered. The information stored there could change everything." "What kind of information?" Zilara asked. "Everything," Melara said. "Records of species that were erased from history. Proof that the founding races started wars to keep other species weak. Evidence of genetic programs designed to limit the abilities of certain peoples." She paused and looked at Zilara. "Including your people, the Volanti." Zilara felt her chest tighten. She had seen glimpses of this in Kyle's mind. Now she would learn the full truth. "The archive at the Sara Minor has been protected for a long time," Corvath said. "We have agents on the moon who guard it and study its contents. But we have received disturbing news." Kyle took over. "Our contacts on the Council homeworlds have detected unusual activity. Ships are being moved. Military forces are being gathered. We believe the Council has finally located the Sara Minor They are planning to destroy the archive. When? Zilara asked. Soon, perhaps within weeks. We do not know exactly, but we know we must act fast. Connor zoomed in on the Thesara minor system. The ice moon appeared, white and cold, orbiting a massive brown planet. Our mission is simple, Connor said. We go to Thesara minor. We download as much information as we can from the archive. Then we distribute that information across the galaxy through our network. Once the truth is out, the Council cannot hide it anymore. Simple, Zilara repeated. You make it sound easy. But if the Council is sending ships, how do we get there without being stopped? We have a ship, Malara said. A cargo vessel with false identification. It is not fast and it is not armed, but it can slip past most patrols without being noticed. And once we reach the Saramaya? Zilara asked. How do we get into the archive? How do we download the information? How do we escape? The others exchanged glances. Kyle leaned forward. That is where you come in, Zilara. The archive is protected by security systems. Some of them are technological, but some of them are mental. The ancient builders used telepathic locks, barriers that can only be opened by a mind of sufficient strength. You want me to open these locks, Zilara said. You are the most powerful telepath any of us have ever met, Korvath said. I have studied your people for years. I know what the Volanthi were once capable of. I believe you have more ability than you realize. The laws of your people have kept you from developing your full potential. But now you know the truth about those laws. Now you can choose to be more. Zilara thought about this. Her whole life, she had been told that using her telepathy was dangerous and shameful. She had kept her abilities locked away, using them only in the smallest ways. The idea of unleashing her full power was frightening, but it was also exciting. I will try, she said. I cannot promise success, but I will try. That is all we ask, Kyle said. He smiled at her, and for a moment, the weight on his shoulders seemed lighter. Connor turned off the holographic projector. The room fell into shadow. We leave in 3 days, he said. Until then, we continue our normal duties. We act as if nothing has changed. The Council has spies everywhere. We cannot give them any reason to suspect us. What about the rest of the crew? Zilara asked. Will they not notice if we disappear? We have arranged cover stories, Malara said. Shore leave, family emergencies, medical transfers. No one will ask questions. The meeting ended. One by one, the others left the room through different exits, disappearing back into the normal life of the ship. Soon, only Kyle and Zilara remained. Are you afraid? Kyle asked. Zilara considered the question. Yes, she admitted. I am afraid of the Council finding us. I am afraid of failing. I am afraid of what I might find in that archive about my own people. Fear is good, Kyle said. It keeps you sharp. The people who are not afraid are the ones who make mistakes. Are you afraid? Kyle was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. I have been doing this for 15 years. I have watched friends die for this cause. I have seen terrible things done by those in power. There was a time when I thought we could never win, when it all seemed hopeless. But I kept going, because giving up was worse than failing. He looked at her with those green eyes that seemed to hold so much. Yes, I am afraid. But I am also hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I believe we have a real chance. We have information that the Council does not want anyone to see. We have people willing to risk everything to share it. And now we have you. Zilara did not know what to say. She had never thought of herself as important. She was just a navigation officer, a Volanthi who followed the rules and kept her head down. Now she was being told that she could change the galaxy. I will not let you down, she said. Kyle placed a hand on her shoulder. I know you will not. Now get some rest. We have a long journey ahead of us, and you will need all your strength. He left the room. Zilara stayed behind for a moment, looking at the blank space where the holographic map had been. Somewhere out there, on a frozen moon at the edge of known space, the truth was waiting. And she was going to find it. She left the hidden room and returned to her quarters. As she lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, she thought about everything that had happened. 1 week ago, she had been a normal crew member with a normal life. Now she was part of a secret network, preparing to steal the most dangerous information in the galaxy. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt alive. The journey to the Sara Minor took 18 days. Their ship was called the Gray Sparrow. It was an old cargo vessel with scratched paint and engines that made strange noises. From the outside, it looked like junk. Inside, it was filled with equipment that could have bought a small moon. Scanning devices, communication gear, weapons hidden in secret compartments. The network had spent years preparing this ship for a mission, exactly like this one. Zilara spent most of the journey in a small cabin at the back of the ship. She practiced her telepathy every day, pushing her abilities further than she ever had before. Corvette helped her, using ancient Drexen meditation techniques to focus her mind. It was hard work, and it left her exhausted. But slowly, she could feel herself getting stronger. Kyle came to check on her each evening. They would sit together and talk about small things. Their favorite foods, memories from childhood, stories about places they had visited. It was strange, Zilara thought, to be forming a friendship in the middle of something so dangerous. But Kyle made it feel natural. He had a way of being calm, even when everything was chaos. On the 15th day, they passed through a council patrol zone. Everyone on the ship held their breath as the sensor screens lit up with military vessels. But the Gray Sparrow's false identification held. The patrol scanned them once and let them pass. They were just another cargo ship carrying supplies to the outer colonies. Nothing interesting. On the 18th day, they arrived at the Sara Minor. The ice moon was beautiful in a cold way. Its surface was white and blue, covered in frozen oceans and mountain ranges of solid ice. It orbited a massive gas giant that filled half the sky, its swirling brown and orange clouds creating an endless storm that had been raging for millions of years. There, Connor said, pointing at the viewing screen. That dark spot near the northern pole. That is the entrance to the archive. Melara guided the ship down through the thin atmosphere. The Gray Sparrow shook as it cut through the icy winds. Finally, they landed on a flat plain of frozen rock, about 2 kilometers from the archive entrance. We walk from here, Kyle said. The ship's energy signature would be detected if we got any closer. They put on heated suits and stepped out onto the surface of the Sara Minor. The cold hit Zilara immediately, even through the protective gear. Her breath formed clouds of mist that froze instantly and fell like tiny crystals. The wind howled around them, carrying particles of ice that stung any exposed skin. They walked in single file, following a path that had been marked by the network's agents years ago. The markers were small and hidden, visible only if you knew exactly where to look. Kyle led the way, with Zilara behind him, then Melara, then Corvath. Connor stayed with the ship, ready to launch at a moment's notice if they needed to escape quickly. After an hour of walking, they reached the entrance. It was a crack in the ice, barely wide enough for one person to fit through. Without the markers, no one would ever find it. This is it, Kyle said. The archive is about 300 meters below us. Stay close and watch your step. Some of these tunnels are not stable. They squeezed through the crack and began their descent. The tunnels were narrow and dark, lit only by the lights attached to their suits. The walls were made of ice, ancient ice that had been frozen for millions of years. Strange shapes were visible inside the ice, shadows of things that might have been plants or animals from a time. When this moon was warm and alive, Zilara felt something as they went deeper. A presence in her mind, like a whisper, just below the level of hearing. It grew stronger with each step. The ancient builders had left something here, something that was still active after all this time. "I can feel it," she said. "The telepathic barriers. They are ahead." "How strong?" Kyle asked. "Strong. Stronger than anything I have faced before. But I think I can open them." They continued downward. After another hour of climbing and crawling through narrow passages, they emerged into a vast underground chamber. Zilara had never seen anything like it. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Crystalline structures rose from the floor and hung from the ceiling, glowing with soft light in colors she had no names for. The crystals pulsed gently, as if they were breathing. This was not a library in any sense Zilara understood. It was a living thing, a massive organism designed to store and protect information across the ages. "The builders," Corvith whispered. His voice was full of wonder. "We still do not know who they were. They were gone before the founding races even existed. But they left this behind. A gift for whoever came after them." "Or a warning," Malara said, quietly. In the center of the chamber was a raised platform. On the platform stood a single crystal, taller than any of the others, glowing with brilliant white light. Zilara could feel the telepathic barrier surrounding it. It was like a wall of pure thought, ancient and powerful and completely impenetrable. "That is the central archive," Kyle said. "All the information in this place is stored in that crystal. If we can access it, we can copy everything." "If we can access it," Zilara repeated. She walked toward the platform slowly. With each step, the pressure on her mind increased. The barrier was testing her, measuring her, trying to determine if she was worthy. She reached the base of the platform and stopped. The barrier was directly in front of her now, an invisible wall that hummed with energy. She could not see it, but she could feel it with every part of her being. "I am going to try now," she said. "Whatever happens, do not interfere. This is between me and the barrier." The others nodded and stepped back. Zilara closed her eyes. She reached out with her mind, touching the barrier gently at first. It pushed back hard. She pushed harder. The pressure was immense, like being crushed between two mountains. Her head began to ache. Blood dripped from her nose. She remembered what Corvith had told her about the Volanthi. Her ancestors had been one of the most powerful telepathic species in the galaxy. They had been feared by the founding races. They had been capable of feats that modern science could not explain. That power was still inside her, locked away by generations of fear and artificial limitations. Zilara stopped fighting the barrier. Instead, she opened herself to it. She let it see who she was, not the timid navigation officer who followed the rules, but the Volanthi she could have been if her people had never been changed. The barrier probed her mind. It searched her memories. It found the truth she had learned from Kyle's mind, that she had broken free of the chains placed on her people. The barrier dissolved. Zilara opened her eyes. The central crystal was right in front of her, glowing warmly, as if welcoming her. She placed her hand on its surface. Information flooded into her. Not like the violent connection with Kyle's mind, but smooth and gentle, like water flowing into an empty vessel. She saw the history of the galaxy, the real history. She saw the rise and fall of civilizations. She saw the founding races and their long plan to control everything. She saw what they had done to the Volanthi and a dozen other species. She saw everything. "I need the download device," she said. her voice calm despite the tears running down her face. Quickly, Kyle rushed forward with a small machine. He connected it to the crystal. Lights blinked as information began transferring. "How long?" Malara asked. "At this rate, about 4 hours to get everything." Kyle said they did not have 4 hours. Korvath was checking his scanner. His 4 hands were moving frantically across the display. "We have a problem. Council ships have entered the system. They are heading straight for this moon." "How long until they arrive?" Kyle asked. "Less than 2 hours. They must have been waiting nearby. They knew we would come." Xylara's heart sank. After everything they had done, after coming so far, they were going to fail. "Keep downloading," Kyle said. His voice was steady. "We take whatever we can get. Even partial information is better than nothing." They waited. The download continued, painfully slow. The council ships grew closer. Korvath reported their progress every few minutes. 1 hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes. 60% complete, Kyle announced. "That is enough. It has to be enough. We need to go." They disconnected the device. Xylor felt a sense of loss as her hand left the crystal, like saying goodbye to a friend she had only just met. But there was no time for sadness. They ran. The journey back through the tunnels was faster than the journey down. Fear gave them speed. They burst out onto the surface of the ice moon just as the first council fighters appeared in the sky above them. "Run!" Kyle shouted. Weapons fire exploded around them. The fighters were targeting the archive entrance, trying to collapse the tunnels. Ice and rock flew through the air. Malara was hit by a piece of debris and fell. Korvath grabbed her with his 4 arms and kept running. The Gray Sparrow appeared ahead, its engines already warming up. Connor had seen the council ships and prepared for a quick escape. The rear door was open, ramp extended. They threw themselves inside. The door closed. The ship lifted off immediately, throwing them against the walls as it climbed through the atmosphere. "They are following us," Connor shouted from the cockpit. "Fighters on our tail." Kyle pulled himself to the front of the ship. "Get us to the jump point. We need to reach hyperspace before they catch us." The Gray Sparrow was not built for speed or combat. The council fighters were gaining on them. They distributed the information over the following weeks. The network had spent years building a system for exactly this moment. Hidden communication channels stretched across the galaxy. Trusted agents waited on 1,000 different worlds. When the signal went out, they were ready. The data from the SAR miner was divided into packages. Each package contained proof of a different crime committed by the founding races. Genetic manipulation of species. Manufactured wars. Erased histories. Rigged treaties designed to keep the powerful in control. Every species in the galaxy received information that was relevant to them. For the Volanti, the package included everything about how their people had been changed over generations. How their telepathic abilities had been weakened through breeding programs. How their cultural rules had been designed by outsiders to make them afraid of their own power. It was painful truth, but it was truth nonetheless. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The information spread quietly, passing from person to person, ship to ship, planet to planet. The Galactic Council did not react. Their propaganda channels continued as normal, full of stories about peace and cooperation between species. Then the cracks began to show. Minor official on one of the founding race homeworlds gave a speech. He admitted that some of the information in the leaked documents was accurate. He said it was unfortunate but necessary for the stability of the galaxy. The speech was supposed to calm things down. Instead, it made everything worse. Species that had been loyal to the Council for centuries began asking questions. Representatives walked out of council meetings. Trade agreements were cancelled. Military alliances fell apart. The carefully built structure of galactic power, which had stood for thousands of years, began to tremble. Zilara watched it happen from a small ship orbiting a distant star. She and the others had gone into hiding after the mission to the Sara Minor. The council was searching for them everywhere. They moved from place to place, never staying anywhere for more than a few days. One morning, Kyle found her in the observation room, watching the stars. "You should be sleeping," he said. "I cannot sleep," she replied. "Too much is happening. My mind will not rest." Kyle sat down beside her. He looked tired too. They all did. Running from the most powerful organization in the galaxy was exhausting work. "I received a message from our contacts on the Volanthi homeworld," he said. "Things are changing there. Your people are waking up." Zilara felt a mix of hope and fear. "What do you mean?" "The Council of Elders has called an emergency meeting. They are debating the information we sent them. Some of the younger members are demanding that the traditional laws be reconsidered. They want to explore what the Volanthi could become if they were not held back by the old rules. And the older members? They are resisting, of course. Change is always frightening, especially for those who have spent their whole lives following rules that they believed were sacred. But the evidence is too strong to ignore. Even the most traditional elders cannot deny what they have seen." Zilara thought about this. Her homeworld had seemed so far away for so long. She had left it as a young woman, eager to see the galaxy. She had rarely thought about returning. Now, suddenly, she wanted to go back. She wanted to be part of this change. "I should go there," she said. "I should speak to them." Kyle nodded. "I thought you might say that. We have arranged transport. You can leave tomorrow if you wish." Zilara looked at him with surprise. "You knew I would want to do this?" "I know who you are, Zilara. I saw it in your mind, remember? You are not someone who sits on the side while others act. You are someone who leads." The journey to her homeworld took 5 days. Zilara traveled alone, using a false identity to avoid council detection. Her heart beat faster as the ship dropped out of hyperspace and her planet appeared before her. Blue oceans, silver clouds. The continent where she had been born, visible as a dark green shape on the daylight side. She landed at the capital city and made her way to the Hall of Elders. It was a grand building made of white stone, built centuries ago when the Volanthi believed their traditions were ancient and unbreakable. Now, protesters gathered outside its gates. Young Volanthi held signs demanding change. Old Volanthi watched from the shadows, unsure what to think. Zilara pushed through the crowd and entered the hall. Guards tried to stop her, but she projected calm into their minds, and they let her pass. She walked through corridors she had only seen in pictures, heading toward the central chamber where the Council of Elders was meeting. The doors were closed. She could hear voices arguing inside. Without waiting for permission, she pushed the doors open. The chamber fell silent. 20 elders sat in a circle, their silver skin gleaming in the light from high windows. They stared at Zilara with shock and anger. "Who are you to enter this sacred space?" demanded the eldest among them, a male named Torvax, who had led the council for 30 years. "My name is Zilara. I am a Volanthi, like all of you. I have information you need to hear." "We know who you are," said another elder, a female named Satharia. "You are the one who helped the humans steal secrets from the Sara Minor. You are a criminal. You violated our most sacred law by reading another's mind without permission." "I did," Zilara admitted. "And I would do it again, because that violation showed me the truth about our people and our laws." She told them everything. She told them about Kyle Morgan and his network. She told them about the archive and what she had found there. She told them about the genetic programs that had weakened the Volanthi over generations. She told them about the cultural rules that had been imposed on them by the founding races. Our laws are not sacred, she said. They are chains. They were designed by those who feared us to make sure we would never be powerful enough to challenge them. For thousands of years, we have taught our children to be ashamed of their abilities. We have punished anyone who dared to explore what they could truly become. And all that time, we thought we were protecting ourselves. We were actually protecting our enemies. Torvax's face was hard. You have no proof of this? Zilara smiled. I have all the proof you could ever need. It is stored in data crystals that have been distributed to every major city on this planet. Your citizens are reading it right now. They are learning the truth about their own history. You can deny it if you want, but you cannot stop them from knowing. The chamber erupted into argument. Some elders shouted that Zilara should be arrested. Others demanded to see the evidence for themselves. Cytharia called for order, but no one listened. Finally, a young elder named Kethan stood up. He was the youngest member of the council, barely old enough to hold his position. He raised his hand and slowly the chamber fell quiet. I have read the documents, he said. I spent all night studying them. I did not want to believe what they said, but I cannot deny the evidence. The genetic records match our own historical data. The cultural analysis explains patterns that our scholars have wondered about for generations. Everything fits together. He looked at Zilara with something like respect. I believe her. And I believe we must change. Other voices joined his. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough. A crack had appeared in the wall of tradition, and that crack would only grow wider with time. Zilara left the Hall of Elders as the sun was setting. The protesters outside had grown into a huge crowd. They cheered when they saw her. Someone had spread the word about what she had done inside. She walked through the crowd, touching hands, sharing encouragement. These were her people. They had been sleeping for thousands of years, but now they were waking up. The galaxy would see what the Volanti could truly become. A familiar figure waited for her at the edge of the crowd. Kyle Morgan stood with his hands in his pockets, watching her with that calm smile she had come to know so well. How did you get here? She asked. I followed you. I wanted to make sure you were safe. You could have been caught. The council is hunting for you. Kyle shrugged. The council is falling apart. They have bigger problems than catching one human spy. They walked together away from the crowd, finding a quiet spot where they could watch the sunset over the silver towers of the city. What happens now? Zilara asked. Now the real work begins, Kyle said. The council will not collapse overnight. The founding races will fight to keep their power. There will be conflicts, probably wars. But the truth is out now. It cannot be hidden again. Species across the galaxy are demanding change. And eventually, they will get it. How long will it take? Years, maybe decades. But we will get there. I believe that. Zilara looked at the sky. The first stars were appearing as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, on thousands of worlds, other species were having conversations just like this one. They were learning the truth about their history. They were deciding what kind of future they wanted. When I read your mind that bay in the medical bay, she said, I thought I had made a terrible mistake. I thought I had destroyed everything I believed in. And now I realize that was the moment my life truly began. Everything before that was just waiting. Kyle took her hand. They stood together in the fading light. Two people from different worlds who had somehow found each other in the middle of impossible events. The galaxy is full of secrets, Kyle said. We uncovered some of them. But